I wonder if me, a self-advocating Joaquin Phoenix enjoyer, will ever get to see his massive testicles in a movie someday. I wonder where that movie is. What did I just watch? I couldn't think of a decent costume for this review because after watching it, what do I even dare to even try to replicate or try to dress up as? I'm absolutely stumped. I just feel like I've just been going absolutely insane writing this script. I'm just like an emotional wreck at this point. But you know what? It actually aligns with the themes and the messages conveyed here in the movie. Being an emotional wreck right now for this review is the perfect costume for this type of movie. How about that? So, Ari Aster, much like Damien Chazelle, has released not too many features, but the few that he has written and directed have had a massive influence on horror filmmakers today. And I would say his movies rejuvenated my interest in mature psychological horrors. Not saying there were heavy-hitting, dark psychological horror movies before Hereditary, but I will always recall my first viewing experience of Hereditary. It just shook me to my very core. Due to not being over the top with a fantastical premise, nor going overboard with CGI entities, but rather telling a raw story about a family being consumed by grief. Things that can happen in real life are and will always be scarier than things that can happen in a work of fiction. That, as well as the slow approach to building up an entity without resorting to cheap jump scares, is one of the many factors that I love about Hereditary. For sure, one of my all-time favorite horror movies. Midsommar took that slow burn approach of unsettling scenarios and pushed it to some levels of experimental ridiculousness, I'll admit, but it felt more grand and it just took insane to a whole new level. I appreciate it just as much as Hereditary, but I can understand people that were turned off by it due to its over-the-top nature compared to Hereditary. Both of these movies, though, have been influential in what I consider to be scary to me. And if I ever want to create a horror film one day, I would strive to capture a similar sensation of what Ari captured here for me. It's been a good chunk of time now since Midsommar, and this one was advertised to lean more into the realm of horror comedy, which seems to be a genre that is dying off, unfortunately. So I was very much looking forward to this one. And after just watching it, I am very conflicted. Beau is afraid. We follow Beau, a timid and anxiety-ridden man on his journey back home to visit his mother while confronting all of his deepest, darkest fears. Let the brain fuckery commence. An positively spoiler discussion, more particularly towards the end. I feel like it's not even possible to really spoil this movie because even the spoiler topics are very confusing on their own without further explanation. I'm gonna do my best to just kind of go over my general points without going too deep into it, but I feel like just doing a broad surface layer review doesn't do this movie justice whatsoever. So I'm gonna try to hit a middle ground. Let me know how I did below down in the comments. Did I do a good middle ground job? I don't know. Let's find out. I'm gonna be honest up front. This is perhaps the most confusing movie I've ever seen in my entire life. At least in terms of a first watch. Most weird? I mean, it's up there. I always anticipate weird things from A24 at this point, so nothing too shocking there, I would say. For anyone not familiar with this studio and are just intrigued by this movie, please listen to me when I say that I highly recommend you watch any A24 movie. Literally any of them is going to be more straightforward than this one. If this is your introduction to the studio, seeing this one first would be like jumping headfirst into a deep end pool without even learning how to swim yet. What this movie did for me above anything else was have me question the purpose of it. I went into this movie thinking it would be a visually trippy but straightforward tale of Joaquin Phoenix traversing a city while under the influence of prescribed medication, or even the opposite, going through withdrawal of a prescribed medication, and going through a journey of self-discovery, most of it taking place in his head. Goofy scenarios with uncanny valley characters and entities played for laughs would have been my initial pitch for the movie. Well, no wonder A24 had trouble advertising this movie, because if anything, this feels more so like a series of multiple short films that have entirely different symbols and themes from each other that have been spliced together with little to no cohesion. I think that's probably the best way I can summarize the overall structure of this movie. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where I needed to look up this number of YouTube analysis and breakdown videos before in order for all of them to just explain to me all of the elements that I missed, because the abundance of symbolism and the lack of clarity is just on a whole other level here. It's one thing thing for screenwriters to create a mysterious object or a mysterious moment that can be interpreted in many different ways depending on who you are. But I felt like the amount of obscure, unexplained moments was just taken way too far here. I'm all for experimental filmmaking. I will always support it. But I still believe one needs to draw the line of what is too far to the point of it just not resonating to a majority of audience members. It'll just end up coming off as nonsensical and, dare I say, maybe even a little bit pretentious. After watching many different reviews, I feel the person that did the best job of concising, is that even a word? Of just explaining the movie as a whole for me to further understand it the best was, of all people, Meat Canyon, good old Papa Meat. He described the movie in full and as well as discusses many other movies over on his second channel. Please go check it out. I am a fan of his indeed. He definitely helped me solidify my thoughts on the elements that I liked and disliked of the movie. I feel like the best attempt to further explain this movie, specifically this movie's structure, is to explain it in its 4 separate chapters. 4 separate films, if anything. I don't know how this is going to turn out. My head is hurting right now as I'm preparing for this. Let's just dive right in. I'm going to lose my sanity while making this. Let's go. The first act establishes Beau and explores his anxiety-ridden mind in his cramped and borderline rotten apartment building. A rundown yet accurate depiction of what I imagine living in New York is like. And from the first encounter between Beau and his therapist, we are immediately met with very uncanny characters. Not one character in this movie is sane. From the cast to the extras are absolutely unhinged. Nobody behaves in a cohesive manner. Because of that, we the audience feel like we are going insane and are just as crazy as Beau. Probably the biggest question I was constantly asking myself throughout the movie's runtime was, are we seeing things as they really are in this world, or is this how Beau is seeing the world around him? Are we seeing everything from Beau's point of view? Therefore, everything is just exaggerated to the max. Joaquin Phoenix at this point has proven to have a talent for playing mentally disturbed weirdos, so a role like this was fit for him. I don't think anybody can deny that he wasn't excellent in this movie. And now that I think about it, with this whole setup and performance, this movie, at least the start of it, really reminded me of Joker. The opening chapter gripped me, and I was on board to see just how Beau would overcome these super unsettling encounterments. This whole city block just seems to be the most stressful place to live. Another important element I think we need to discuss is the comedy aspect of it. Now, I would say this was the most goofy chapter in the whole movie for sure. It was clear that there was a certain shot or a certain block performance that was meant to be played for laughs, or even an uncomfortable laugh due to the WTF nature of it. I got a few laughs and a few chuckles out of the absurd circumstances, more so because I was telling myself, oh my god, this is so fucked up. I cannot imagine being in this specific circumstance. I would rather be dead. Damn it, Aster, you are one twisted man. Also, one aspect that really stood out to me was the cinematography. This is a very gorgeous looking movie, and it has some of the most creative camera work woven into some of the most seamless editing transitions that I think I have ever seen in any movie, period. I think this chapter just nailed it when it came to conveying the damaging effects of anxiety and isolation from the world in a goofy manner. So with that fairly straightforward for the most part opening, we now move on to chapter 2. Now, with an insane closing moment from chapter 1 involving a moving truck and Joaquin Phoenix's ginormous testicles, Beau is brought into care under a supposed functioning family, kind of against his will, but he still has plans to make it over to his mother's place. Holly from The Office is here, so that's pretty neat. I would say this is the chapter where the muddled theme started to come into play and the script began to lose focus. We spent a good chunk of time just watching Joaquin play hostage and just get emotionally manipulated by this twisted family, especially their bratty daughter, into staying, and it was just so brutal to watch. This family lost their beloved enlisted son to combat, so therefore they treat Beau as if he is their son to fill in the gaping hole left behind of losing a child. They see Beau as a means for them to channel that lost love, so much to where they neglect their only remaining daughter, which drives a wedge between them. It is here that I noticed another underlying theme present was of grief and how we humans choose in what ways to cope with it, whether it be in a healthy or a destructive manner. Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane take the concept of a loving adoptive family to twisted levels, and I adored their performances. And again, with a dark comedy, PTSD is played for laughs here, which definitely did get some good chuckles out of me, I won't lie. Now, it is here that the seeds are planted into further understanding what kind of relationship Beau had with his mother with flashback sequences. It's here we got to see early glimpses of how twisted and manipulative she was towards him. Just how much she has just ruined his perception of finding love and picking a partner. It was getting borderline creepy to the point where I seriously thought Aster was about to go into the realm of incest. That is how uncomfortable these encounterments were. Oh my god, my head's starting to hurt even more. So now to move on to chapter 3, which I will label as... Now, we don't expect Beau to be here for the rest of the movie's runtime, so of course there has to be a fallout between him and the family. So when he finally is able to escape into the woods, this is where the movie gets real artsy fartsy. These are the moments that really striked me in the trailer, which is the use of live action footage blended with animation. Beau stumbling into a theater play with a full captive audience in the middle of the woods and not even questioning it really drives home just how loony this world is. Just when I felt like this movie was really starting to lose me when it came to the messages it wanted to say, this chapter thankfully did reel me back in with some actual cohesive storytelling. This is when we witness the life Beau imagines for himself if he was no longer tethered down by his mother. The independent life he desires but is too afraid to pursue. Traveling, finding a partner, settling down and starting a family. All of this mixed with some of the most visually striking imagery that I've ever seen. Animated brushstrokes present in every shot. Foreground and background stages much like in a theater performance, with costuming on par with that of children's toys. It was all visually remarkable. We just see that Beau just had an extreme emotional developed experience just watching this play and imagining himself in it. And then we finally snap back to his real self, his current life that he is currently in. But after witnessing this life-changing play, he is now ready to confront his mother. And from there, we move on to... So I would say starting here is when the heavy spoilers are really coming into play. Even then, I'm not going to discuss every single little minute detail because I feel like it's just doing a disservice at that point if I'm doing an attempt to half-ass it here. There are many other videos here on YouTube further explaining what every single symbol means. I'm just here to give just my overall takes on it. I would say the last 30 to 45 minutes of this movie is arguably the most important. This is when any and all mysteries surrounding Beau and his mother are revealed. Beau finally makes it to his mother's place. Finally makes it to her funeral, the aftermath of her funeral. He missed it, yet he seems unaffected by it at first. This is when his long-lost childhood love arrives. Here to catch up, if you know what I mean. After taking his virginity in his mother's bed, she dies. Right on the spot. On the bed. Right on top of him. Still with me? This was one of the elements that I am still very lost about. It is after that it is revealed that Beau's mother faked her own death and has been monitoring her son's every living moment via surveillance cameras. For how long she's been doing this to him is left in the dark, but she has been toying with him and has been planting actors to meddle with his life, all to discover just how he truly feels about her. It's all just complete madness. And I think Ari Aster may have some unresolved mommy issues here. This has to be top contender for cinema's craziest mom, right? When we see that Beau just wishes death upon his mother at this point, but yet is still fearful in his commitment to kill her. That is when this whole character arc comes full circle. It's driven home just how disturbed this relationship is. This whole relationship between Beau and his mother has just been built on codependency driven by obligation as opposed to genuine love. Beau's mother is revealed to be the type to load all of her own issues onto her son and fully believes he owes her due to the fact that she brought him into this world. Not saying I grew up in an environment like that, but I certainly know certain parents that have treated people that I care for like that. So shout out to the awesome parents that make their issues their children's responsibilities. Just when you think this toxic relationship isn't hammered into your brain enough, she then proceeds to literally take him to trial amongst all of her employees and then sentence him to death for not being a good enough son to her. The final push she needed to be rid of him. Everything we just watched, all of the character development and build-up for the whole movie's 3-hour runtime in what seemed like personal growth, just resulting in a final whimper of Beau crying out mercy for his mother. It all just made me feel kind of disappointed, actually. The more I ponder on it, the more I do acknowledge just how brutally real an ending like this is when it comes to the realm of dealing and staying with people who hurt you and use you for personal gain. Even if it is your own mother, it is a poison that will inevitably kill your chance of freedom. That is what I feel the last moment of this movie is about, and what Ari is trying to say. Holding on will hurt you more than letting go. And staying with said person out of guilt, out of obligation for them, is no life worth living. Do not make the same mistakes Beau makes here. Did any of you actually keep up with me there? That was a lot. I know, this movie was a lot. I feel a little better just kind of letting it all out now, but I still feel like I have just lost. I feel like Ari Aster has just pulled like the biggest prank on me and has just tricked me into watching something like this. He won. He's fucked with us all. That was my attempt at recapping the movie and all of its convolutedness, whatever word is right there. Let me know how I did. I am going insane right now. I hope hearing this all makes your brain explode also. My head just hurts so much right now. A part of me feels like I am doing the whole movie-going experience a disservice by overthinking all of the symbolism here. Yet, it's clear that this is what Ari set out to do. He wanted to challenge the viewers instead of feeding them just numbing content to consume and forget right when you exit the theater. This is by far the most difficult movie I had to talk about. Yet I feel no amount of words can clearly explain and do this movie justice. All I can firmly say is go out and see it if you want to have a brain-blowing experience. Take that as a good or bad thing. It truly feels like this is the closest thing to interdimensional cable as we'll ever get. This makes the Eric Andre show look sane and structured. The more I'm thinking about this movie, the more I like it, but yet I cannot allow the extreme abstract approach to storytelling sugarcoat what I found frustrating in it, which is the nonsensical nature of it. This is the definition of an experiment. Hey, I will always take weirdo pieces like this over churned out sequel reboots any day of the week. Just for the love of God, Ari, please go see a therapist. I don't even know what to score this. This is the first movie where I don't even know what to give it. If I just had to spitball what I was thinking, I would say it was a 6 out of 10, honestly, as I was leaving the theater. But right now, I feel like it's a 7 out of 10 at this very moment, the more I think about it and the more I like it. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe later, after seeing it a second time, I may give it even an 8 out of 10. I don't even feel like a number score is justifying this movie's existence. Perhaps upon another rewatch, I'll appreciate it more or be frustrated by it more. Either way, I cannot stop thinking about it. Let me know what you all thought in the comments down below. Was this movie an absolute mindfuck for you as well? Let me know. Did you understand every single aspect of this movie? Please educate me below down in the comments and educate me. Does anybody know if that was actually Joaquin Phoenix's testicles in the movie? I'm just asking for a friend. Thanks. I just want to go to bed. I don't know. I just don't know.